I have 5 kids. I've got better odds than you that at least one of my kids will turn out all right.
Yeah,
Because you have,
it's true. But
you know what I'm
you
saying?
have greater odds
Yeah.
that all 5 of them are going to bankrupt you,
Oh, that is true.
whereas I only have 3.
I
No,
didn't I didn't think about that. That's
yeah,
sad now. Hmm.
sad exclamation point.
making
Yeah.
making me sad.
Who is your daddy?
I am your father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?
All right, well, let's get into episode 77, I think. Did I number this one right?
I think so.
Starting to lose
I
track
think
here.
so.
Yeah. Can't believe we're this many episodes in. Episode 77. We are almost to July of 2017. That means we're about almost halfway through. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm kind of in the corner of our bedroom to try to stay away from where the kids are. My wife's going to be giving them snacks and bedtime soon, and so she gave me the green light to just come up here and close the door. So hopefully it'll be nice and quiet. It is still a busy time for us this evening. But anyway,
Eli's still up, so there is the possibility he could walk out nude.
it's summertime, man.
And-
Summertime in Florida.
And
Why wouldn't you be nude?
Exactly. And I told him, I'm recording, so maybe put some clothes on before you come out of your room. So we'll see.
Now, summertime here in Colorado has been a little different. Like, actually, 2 days ago, the high was 63. It was really chilly. And then today, the high is up in the 70s again, so it's starting to get back up there. But then at night times, it's getting down to 40 or 50. It's crazy. It's been kind of crazy. But anyway, my name's Tim Nestor. For those of you who might not know who we are, I'm here with Derek Teague, or Tigwe, as I haven't called you in a while. Derek Tigwe. Yeah. Hey, that's kind of like your Stefan Urkel. Remember that Family Matters back in the day when Steve Urkel had like his suave counterpart? Yeah, maybe Derek Tigwe can be like your suave, has better opinions counterpart.
Oh, okay. You're just sour because 311's better than Incubus.
We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that.
I'm excited about 311. It's been a long time since I've been excited about 311. I will admit on the show to you that, yes, they have gone downhill. But I actually, last night, as you know, we were supposed to record, and I had extra people in my house, and I was exhausted, like a long day of just being out in the sun the entire day. And I came home, and you even were like, well, play the Switch. I'm like, no. That's too hard. But anyways, long story short, I just put my headsets on, let the kids watch Power Rangers, and I jammed out to the new 311. And I was like, wow, this is a really, really good album. So right before you and I started recording, before I even logged into Google, I went on Amazon and I ordered their album. So I'm going to actually support them financially too.
So we were on Spotify before or something?
I have the Amazon Music or whatever. I pay like $15 a month and I get everything. But I want to be able to listen to it in my car. I like it that much.
There you go. Well, that's one of the reasons. That's why I asked about Spotify, because I do the Spotify, I don't know what it's called, Prime or Premium, whatever their top thing is, where you have no ads, but you can also download it and take it on the go, which is nice.
Yeah, that's what I have, yeah. Pretty much the same thing.
Cool. Yeah, no, 311 is a good band. I was just giving you a hard time, but I do think they've gotten worse over the years.
They have, but I'm telling you, this new album, I'm not going to say it's amazing. I have to, listen to it more, but just from that first go-through, it had some heavy stuff, which is stuff they've been getting away from. They just don't do that anymore because they're so old and, I don't know, annoying. They want to write stupid crap. And then they were just doing a lot of different stuff, and I'm like, man, nobody writes like this. Like, you guys, you really did shoot out to write a great album instead of just going, what are we known for? Rap, rock, okay, insert that. Reggae, yeah, insert that. It was like they were trying to put everything in it. It was really good. It's really good so far.
All right. So there's your music review for the week.
Yeah, 311, buy it. Mosaic.
311. There you go. Or just go pirate it. It's fine. Just do what you have to do.
Go Jose Jimenez. Go Jose Jimenez it.
Yeah, do that. Jose it.
Jose it. That would be easier. Like anybody's
all right,
gonna know
so
who
since
Jose Jimenez is anyways. Jose it.
Jose does. Jose knows who he is. About halfway through the year, which I can't believe, and with that comes something we want to do for next week, and that is a Game of the Year watch, as well as a kind of mid-year Game of the Year award, just for one category. We're not going to do a whole big Game of the Year show.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of announce here's what the community is currently picking as their top 2 or 3 games. We'll pick our favorite games so far, and then we'll just talk about what we think are the contenders. Regardless of our personal opinions, we'll talk about the ones we consider to be contenders halfway through the year. So we also have a better picture of what's coming up the second half of the year. Now that E3 has passed, I think we have a pretty good idea of what the slate for 2017 is going to look like when it's all said and done. There still might be a couple of surprises here and there, but really those would mostly be delays, if anything else. I think we have a pretty good idea of what everything's going to look like. The only month that looks totally blank right now is December, but we'll talk about that more next week. And so make sure you go on our Facebook group channel. I'll also post this on our Facebook page if you're not part of the group, but you follow our page. I'll put the link up there as well, where you can go and vote for your favorite games so far in 2017. So,
and real quick, if you're a new listener and you are interested in our group, we've all known each other for a long time. So if you're observing, you're gonna see a lot of rudeness, a lot of anger comments, just stuff to like piss each other off. It's all in good fun. We like to have fun. We like to make fun of each other. We're not politically correct. We're not religiously correct. We just say whatever we want, do whatever we want, and it's all in good fun. So if you are observing and you want to be active, do not be afraid of how, well, I can speak personally for myself, how mean I am. I'm very mean on there, but I'm really not that mean.
It's sad, but thankful.
Sad, but thankful.
But thankful, yeah. No, you're right. I would say that at least on our parts, it's all in good fun. There are times when things aren't in such good fun.
Sure, yeah.
But,
I fought with people, but whatever, you get over it.
Yeah, it's
doesn't
interesting.
matter.
I think one of the things that keeps our current group and community going, and who knows how long that'll last, but for right now, it's still going strong. The conversations are still pretty regular, and a lot of people chime in on a lot of different topics. I think it's just because people care, and they, for the most part, either they care about the topic or there's been kind of these friendships built through these different groups. And as those bigger groups get trimmed down to smaller groups, like ours, for example, where it's very focused in on just on gaming, and we're dads, and we don't really have any other agenda other than just talking about video games. And so anyway, as you trim that down and the community grows and some friendships, even though they're Facebook friendships, but some friendships form, you get to know each other, you learn each other's sense of humor. So yeah, as you guys observe that, Derek's right, that is all done in good fun. But if that's not the place for you, we also have a Facebook page where you can go and comment on stuff, still follow our posts. I still keep that up to date, and you can see what's happening with the show. And the last thing I'll ask of everyone listening before we move on to talk about video games is to help us grow the show. We've actually seen some really good growth over the last year and a half. And it's been awesome. 77 episodes in, and we're still having fun talking. We still have fun dialoguing with all of you guys. Whenever we ask for feedback or for voting, you guys all participate, and that's really great. And so we want to see that grow. And specifically, of course, we're targeting parents who game and dads who game. The name of the show is Fathers of the Grind. But everyone is welcome to listen and participate. We have plenty of group members who are regulars, who are good friends of ours, who are not dads, but they're avid gamers, or maybe they've even fallen off of gaming, but they still chat with us about stuff. So join in, share the show. Thank you so much for those of you who do share the show. And I don't usually ask this, but if you listen on an app, whether it's iTunes or something else that lets you rate and review, take a minute and do that. I mean, I'm not going to make you, obviously, but that would really help us. It's one of those things that I purposefully didn't ask for a long time. But if you have the opportunity, that does help us kind of move up the search results as people are looking.
I would actually like to see you make them rate us.
I'll make them. I will track them down by IP address, knock on their door, and look over their shoulder as they write a review.
I do believe, I saw another conversation where everybody was praising you on how nice you are. And I'm like,
so not
no.
true, right? No.
No. Yeah. Internally, he's
Yeah.
You're gonna have to edit that.
Hey! You guys have no idea. I mean, you're not around me when I'm with my kids when they've just said that final thing that pushes me over the edge. You have no idea.
You son of a...
Daddy,
please stop it!
Get in the box. They're like, not the box.
I accidentally peed in there last night. Well, lay in your pee, boy.
Oh, man. Oh, by the way, a little family story today. We caught a mouse. It was the last remaining mouse in this new home that we've moved into. And
is that part of the deal?
It was part of the deal. Yeah. Well, we caught 5 of them. We kept setting traps, and we caught a couple of big ones, and then a couple medium-sized ones. And there was this little one who kept slipping all my traps. It was eating all the peanut butter and all the cheese, and then just getting out of there. It was too light. It was too small. Must have been the baby of the family. And so I spent a lot of time the other day cutting out these little planks of wood into the right shapes to fit into all the gaps under our sink, and I was stuffing steel wool into all the holes around the pipes, and just basically totally mouse-proofing the area where I've noticed them and seen all the little mouse droppings and all that stuff. So we had it completely blocked off from its entryway. I even sealed off some of the outside entries that I noticed that mice could get in. And this little guy was basically stuck under our stove. He had nowhere to go because I had blocked off all his stuff. And so long story short, we got him into a bucket and took him away. The kids saw me catch him, so it's not like I could just kill him right there. And it was either keep him as a pet or let him go out and we went to a local park. Yeah, we took a long walk and dropped him off. But anyway, that was my adventure of the day. But
I've never had to deal with any mice before.
Do you guys have a cat or cats?
No, not anymore. Not in our new place.
See, that is usually the easiest way to solve this problem is to get a cat. But that decision resides with my wife, who usually has to do most of the work for the cat. And she was like, nope, not this time. Not happening. So it's all on me to catch those mice. I think I got the last one, though. So
all right, good.
We will see. All right, so let's talk about, instead of real-life adventures like catching mice and all that kind of stuff, using my new saw I got for Father's Day. I got a jigsaw. It's pretty fun. It's little, but it's fun. But other than that stuff, let's talk about fake adventures.
Yeah.
Video game adventures, and let's talk about what we're playing. Let's go to you first. What have you been playing since we last talked?
Okay, so I finished a couple of games the past week. I finished Zelda last Sunday, Breath of the Wild. Very happy to be done with it, but I'm not really done with it because I keep jumping in because I just want gear and I just want to explore. There's something magical about the game, but we've talked about that a lot. I'm just very happy I finished it because I'll be honest with you, even though I kept saying in the shows, I'm going to finish it, I was a little worried I wouldn't. I just felt like it was such a overwhelming game that I was like, I'll never just commit to it. I'll just keep wandering around for a little while and then stop or whatever. But yeah, so I finally committed to it, finished it, and still loving it. Still want to.
And you see what I mean by the final boss being easier, right? I mean, that was pretty obvious right out of the gate. It was nice.
Yeah. So I did do all 4 of the beasts and then fight Ganon. And the Ganon fight was actually, I felt like, I'm not saying all the other 4 fights were bad, because I know you said you were kind of disappointed with them. I didn't think they were that disappointing. I just think they could have been a little more challenging. And I felt like Ganon was that right feel for challenge, because if, like you were saying, and the last time we recorded, you were talking about how you really have to know all the techniques in fighting in order to beat him. Because there was a part, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there was just a part where I was like, what am I supposed to do? None of my attacks are getting through. And then I was like, Guardian. Okay, so I got to do this. And then
that
I was having,
we talked about.
And then so I was having a little bit of trouble at first, and I was getting low health too. I was getting a little nervous. It's one of those anxious times where I was hitting the button wrong because I didn't want to die. And then I finally finished them off, and I was like, yes.
For anyone who's getting close to that, I mean, it's obvious, but make sure you bring tons of meals that have lots of heart replenishing abilities. I don't think the damage or defense buffs are really going to help you. Just have lots and lots of heart replenishing stuff for that fight. And then, of course, you're going to want to make sure you have plenty of shields. Have your shield stock full because you're going to need those too. So
he's super cool looking too, but totally love that game. I then went from Zelda, which is this big, huge, grand game, and I decided because I'd already beaten Wolfenstein New Blood when it released, and then I pre-ordered Wolfenstein 2 on PC, so I was kind of excited for it, but I wanted to play Old Blood, after you talked about it. And I was like, oh, it's a shorter, more linear experience, so I'm going to do that. Overall, I enjoyed it, but I did find some of this stuff annoying, and the last boss I found to be very annoying. I was like, oh my gosh. This is pissing me off. But I did finish it, and I'm
The
glad I
last boss
played
was
it.
weird, right? It was almost like something out of one of the early Uncharted games where it's like, this doesn't belong
Yeah, like
here.
you're playing this entire game fighting a certain thing. In fact, I will say this, and again, I'm not going to spoil anything. Um, Spoilers: you kill Nazis. So you're killing Nazis, and then something happens in like chapter 6, and these Nazis are not just Nazis anymore.
Right.
And so I thought that was cool. And then
I did too. I liked that too. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
scary but cool. Yeah.
I loved it. And then
Yeah.
when I fought the last boss, that's when I wasn't mad at why I was fighting the last boss or even what the last boss was. I was just upset with. I've said this before. When there's like 20 different things going on, that's when I die a lot, and that's when I get frustrated because I'm like, what's going on? Because
Yeah.
just fighting just the last boss was fine. It was when everything else kept coming in, layers and layers of difficulty, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this
Yeah.
is getting very infuriating. But I did finish it.
Nice.
Oh, good lord! Somebody
Did someone just shoot at you just now?
Somebody's probably fighting. So I finished Old Blood, and then right now I am playing Andromeda on PC and Persona 5 on PS4. Whether I stick with Persona 5, we'll see. I just that game. I totally have to be in the mood for it because while I find the gameplay to be fun, I like the characters, I like the world. I've said this before. I have to be in that mood where I can sit there and listen to talking for an hour. And that's my frustration because I'm like, can I just please go to a dungeon or go to the castle? Can I please just get to that? And it's just days and days of socializing and socializing, and it gets a little annoying. But overall, still a good game. And then Andromeda on the PC is a spectacular game. It plays really well. I know you and I have had a couple conversations. I'm sure you'll bring it up here. I will say this as somebody who's played the PS4 and the PC version, it's obvious the PC version is going to be superior if you have a high-end PC. But the biggest takeaway is it feels like when they were transitioning this game from PC to PS4 and Xbox One and stuff like that, I don't know if the game was too big or they just didn't do a very good job of it, but there are certain worlds and characters on the PS4 that look unfinished. They're very cartoony. Hey, topless boy. I told you to put clothes on.
This is streaming out to the world.
Yeah. We've got at least 2 people watching us. I'm just kidding. Well, that's actually pretty accurate. But the point is like it looks okay on the PS4, and then when you go to the PC, you're like, oh, I remember what he looked like on the PS4. He didn't look like this. Like he looks better, and all the animations look better. Everything just overall looks better. But so I'll probably keep playing that. I'm having a lot of fun with that. I'm about over halfway through it, so I'll probably beat it. There's no reason not to.
Cool. Well, yeah, I last time we talked, I was at the halfway point or a little beyond that on the Old Blood, and I did finish it actually that next day because, again, it's not a very long game. It's 8 chapters. It's about, what would you say? You can beat it in 6 to 8 hours depending on how many times you die.
It took me about 7 hours, and most of that, well, I can't say most of it, but at least an hour of that was on the last boss. So I was at the last boss for 6 hours.
Certain sections are certainly tougher than others, and of course it depends on if you go stealthy. And I think I talked about this last week. You don't have to go stealthy, and you don't have to go guns blazing. The game does give you some opportunity to either be sneaky or to.
I will say this,
shooting.
and I don't remember if this was in New Blood or whatever. New Order. Because I played it so long ago, so I really don't remember. But in Old Blood, like you'll go into a section, and there will be 2 captains or sergeants that you have to find. So I like the fact that in this game, and again, I don't remember if they did this in the New Order.
It was a New Order too.
Okay. So it's the same thing where they're basically giving you an option of stealth or guns blazing. And the cool thing about this game, and this is kind of reminds me of like Dishonored, is you really can do both. But if you do what I do, and that's guns blazing most of the time, or starting out at stealth and then get caught because I suck at it, they sound the alarm, and when the alarm goes off, you get swarmed. with
tons
guys.
of good enemies.
And then
Right.
the only way to shut the alarm up and the only way to stop enemies from coming is to silence those captains. So I do like
And
that.
then you have to fight all the guys who came in from the
Yep.
alarm. You still have to kill everybody.
Exactly. And there were some areas that was very frustrating because you were dealing with
Very tough.
the big dude metal guys while trying to
Mhm.
find the captains, while having to deal with the little Nazi soldiers. So
Yeah, when they come and start flanking you, and all you're trying to do is aim at that little blue glowing light,
Mhm.
so that metal guy gets stunned, and you can go rip his armor off. I mean, there's a lot going on all at once, and yeah, it can be very frustrating. That's why I ended up doing kind of probably 60-40, 60% stealth, 40% just shooting it up, because there's so many awesome guns and tons of ammo. I didn't ever feel like I was in a shortage of ammo. I felt like I always had plenty to shoot.
They do a good job of making you feel
And
equipped.
yeah, so I would usually do my best to kind of learn the area, stealth my way to the captains. I would usually do a couple of tries because I would get spotted. And then once I took the captains out, then just unload and just start taking out all the guys. That's usually how I tried to approach it, and I felt very successful if I could take those guys out before they set the alarm off. I don't know why. It was just like my own little way of doing each area. You can do it however you want. You could, in some areas, you can stealth by everybody, and you don't have to fight anybody. And in some areas it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to get spotted, and you're in for a gunfight. But I really enjoyed the Old Blood. I thought it was a really great add-on. I think most of you, if you haven't yet, many of you already own it. If you don't yet, you can usually get it on a really cheap sale, usually less than $10. I think I got it for $7 or something on a sale at one point. So go ahead and grab that if you see it on sale. It's a great first-person shooter. It's a nice standalone story, and if you've played the New Order or plan on it, it's a nice lead-in right to the beginning of the New Order. And then, of course, Wolfenstein 2 comes out this fall. So I thought it was fun. I'm glad I kind of wrapped up that opening storyline there, and I'm really looking forward to the new Colossus. I am also playing Mass Effect Andromeda. I am playing it on the PS4. I am not impressed with a lot of the animations. I'll just get the negative out of the way. That's really the only big negative I can point out.
Yeah.
Well, there's two. There's two major negatives. One is the animations, and it's really, really it's impossible to miss during the cutscenes and the conversations. And that's a bummer because the BioWare conversations are so good. And the conversation trees and the way you build relationships and the way you make decisions, BioWare does such a great job with that in all of their games. And I just really, I feel bad that the animation is so distracting. There's plenty of times when I chose Scott Ryder, the brother, and there's plenty of times when he's talking and his eyes are kind of halfway rolled up into his head, and it looks like he's fainting. And I'm like, what? This is ruining the scene as he's trying to make a point, and his eyes are kind of like, it looks like he just had a stroke.
Yeah.
So anyway, those kind of things bug me. Or like when you go to talk to somebody and they kind of do this half animation to turn around and then it just jumps to where they're standing 3 feet away from you. It's just janky, you know? And that bugs me. All that being said, the only other negative I have with this game is the menu system. I think now that I'm getting used to it, I don't mind it, but it reminds me of the kind of overwhelming nature of The Witcher 3 when it first came out, where it's like there's a lot of tabs here. I'm trying to figure out what goes where, and the way they do loadouts where you can't really change your equipment on the fly. You have to go back to a certain location to change your loadout, okay, and then picking your skills. I wasn't really sure how the, what do they call them? The classes. They call them something with a P. I can't remember. Anyway, how you pick your classes and how you level those up really is based on what you choose to do with your skill tree. So a lot of it was just convoluted and not super well explained. I don't really love the way the menu's laid out. Let me just put that all out there to say, despite those things that kind of had me going, I don't love that, I am really enjoying this game. I just hit level 21, so I've been playing for a little while. I'm a decent way into the story. I love exploring the different planets. It's not like No Man's Sky in that every planet you see you can land on and explore, and that's a good thing. There's plenty of planets that you just are checking off the list and seeing if they have some kind of mineral deposit or something to grab. But there's plenty of planets to see. You know, there's a big snow planet, there's a tropical planet, a kind of a hot desert planet, this toxic rain planet. There's plenty of planets to explore. Some pretty great environments. I think the visuals look pretty great, even on the PS4.
Yeah.
The standard PS4. It really just comes down to those facial animations in the cutscenes. But I'm enjoying it. I like the storyline. I have not played all the way through Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3. I know some of the main story points, but I've never played them, and I still feel like I can totally get and understand this game. They do a great job of just setting up, here's the story, here's who you are, here's why you're there, and here's the issue you're running into. It's good. It's really, really good. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to play it through to the end because I'm having so much fun. I am at the point now where I've kind of stopped doing a lot of side stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just starting to shift into what's the next main quest, and so I'm just kind of working my way through towards the end at this point. But I really like it. This game is totally worthy of consideration so far in Game of the Year discussions for next week and probably for the end of the year. It's really, really good. And for those of you who, like me, weren't really big into the Mass Effect series before, maybe you skipped them or just couldn't get into it, I would recommend giving this a shot. It's a really, really good game.
I will say this, just to give you a helpful tip without spoiling anything. The way Mass Effect games go, since you haven't beat the other 3, is you can follow the main story, but if you don't deviate from the main story at all and do certain missions or, unlock certain things, your ending will change. So what I would suggest is that you do all the ARC. There's ARC missions.
Yeah, there's some arcs you have to find, right?
Do all the ARC missions, and I would do all the loyalty missions that you can do. Like, do most, if not all. I did all of them with all my side characters. So Liam, all of them. And I did all those. And then you do the ARC missions, and you should be all right.
Okay. Yeah, I've advanced most of those, and actually some of those intertwine. Like Korra's is intertwining with the Asari arc, which is actually the one I'm on right now.
Yeah.
The game is on, it's on pause or whatever on the PS4 right now. Is in sleep mode, and that's exactly where I am. I just got to that Asari arc for Korra's side mission there. So yeah, that's a good call. Maybe I will do those. I'm talking about more things like, someone sends you an email. You have an email thing you can go and you can pick up a quest that way, and they're asking you to go to some planet to find something that their sister left on her bookshelf. Like that kind of stuff I'm starting to skip. Whereas before, if I was on that planet, I would do it. Why not? Get some extra XP. I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't really want the extra XP. Unless this feels like a story-related quest, I'm going to skip it. But some of those some of your sidekicks, their quests, I want to do those. So that's a good call.
Yeah, there's a ton to do in that game. That's why I think I love it just as much as the original trilogy, but it's for different reasons, if not more. And that's because not only can you beat the game, which I did, and I did a lot of the side missions, but even after the game, there's some huge bosses on each level that you can go and seek out and destroy, and then they reward you with certain material that you can then use to upgrade to awesome equipment. So that was one of the outfits that I unlocked. I remember I posted a picture of it, and John Martin was like, "What is that? Like, what armor is that?" And I'm like, "You got to unlock it with the Rim Tech, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Oh, I'm going to."
So it gives you the blueprint for the research, and then the minerals or whatever, materials for the...
It's the material that you would get from the big dudes.
Gotcha.
That allows you to unlock.
Are you talking about the ones that are kind of like these giant worm things that come out of the ground and attack you?
Yeah.
Okay, because I accidentally faced off with one of those really early in the game. I was like level 7, and I had a side quest to go ahead and lay down these impact hammers, and I did 2 of them, and it was fine. I fought off the swarms of enemies, no big deal. And I did the third one, and this giant thing popped up and kept like 1 or 2 shotting me.
Yeah.
And I tried it like 3 times, and then I realized like this is a side quest. They don't really give you levels, I don't think, unless I'm missing it. What level you should be to fight it. But I was like, I'm clearly underpowered. And then I did a quick search on Google for this enemy. And people are calling them these types of enemies. I guess there's a few of them you can fight. Some of the toughest enemies in the game. I was like, oh, well, then I shouldn't be doing this yet.
Yeah, they're more of an end-game type thing.
Yeah, that was my own fault. But I like that kind of stuff where you all of a sudden discover you're in over your head. And you're like, man, this game is big. There's lots you can do. And there's moments that are like genuinely kind of like, oh, I shouldn't be here yet, and I had to run away. But I'm really enjoying that game. It's a lot of fun. It's got some fun third-person shooting action. I'm focusing more on the soldier side, where I've really upgraded my sniper rifle, my assault rifle, my grenades. All that stuff's really strong. And then I always bring along a sidekick who's really good with all the biotics. And so they're making guys freeze in place or float up in the air, and I'll just snipe them out of the air. So I'm really enjoying a lot of that stuff. It's pretty fun. Liking that game. And I'm also playing ARMS for the Nintendo Switch. This is the new favorite of my family. My kids love it. I bought the yellow Joy-Cons, so now I have 4 Joy-Cons. So they can do 2 players can punch, and then we can also, if we want to add a third player, they can join in with the other controller. Because you can play it with just a standard controller button setup.
Yeah.
It's a fun game. It's a fighting game though. But to me, it's between something like Punch-Out and a standard fighting game. So it's fun for me. I'm enjoying it, even though fighting isn't usually my genre, because I think it has some of that cartoony, addictive fun, and just a really simplistic feeling of something like a Punch-Out. But there's a lot of little twists that it adds to it, of course, that make it more complex. And I enjoy it. I'm not very good at it. I think I've only gotten up to level difficulty 3 in the Grand Prix mode. There's 7 or 8 difficulties, I think. So I'm basically still right at the top end of easy, low end of normal mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as good as I am at this point. But I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and it's really fun with the kids, too. So I like ARMS. If you like fighting games and have a Switch, grab it. Otherwise, if you see it on sale, maybe grab it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that too. It's a good game.
Cool game. Well, way to go, Nintendo. All right. Speaking of Nintendo, that's what this week's topic is about. So last week we talked about E3 and how each company did. And I think I liked Nintendo's conference a little more than you did, but we both agreed it was a pretty solid presentation, pretty solid appearance overall by Nintendo. And so it got me thinking not only about Nintendo, but really about all the major companies. And so over the next several weeks, we won't do it every single week, but intermittently, we're going to talk about the current state of, and then fill in the blank with the company. And we're going to start things off this week with Nintendo. The state of Nintendo. How are they doing? Where did they how did they get to this point? How far have they come, and what were the ups and downs getting to this point? So we won't spend a ton of time on the historical part.
Yeah.
I'll give kind of an overview of some of that, and if you've got some thoughts or things that you've learned over the years, feel free to throw that in. But I really want to talk about, okay, where are they now? What do we think they need to do next? And what would be maybe their biggest mistake? Things like that. So we'll just kind of do a quick overview in the next 20, 25 minutes. How's Nintendo doing, and how did they get here? So let's jump into that. So Nintendo, one of the longest standing, actually I think they are the longest standing video game company, because they were of course a toy company way before getting into games, into video games. So let's talk a little bit about their consoles. This is something I've heard before, but I've got a link there if you want to look at it yourself. This isn't something I really looked at from on my own until recently, and it's true that Nintendo's console sales have decreased with every iteration except for one. We'll talk about what that one is in a minute, which is kind of crazy. The most notable turning point was when they launched the N64 against Sony's first step into the industry with the PlayStation 1, which had already been out by the time the N64 rolled out. So for those of you who don't know, many of you do, here's the short story, the short version of it. Nintendo and Sony had a deal to create a Super Nintendo CD-ROM attachment in the early 90s. It was going to be kind of the next iteration of the Super Nintendo. And what they're going to call it, who knows? I know Sony had already started calling some of the prototype stuff a PlayStation with a space in between. And so what's interesting is that they had this deal. I think it was as early as '89 they had this deal going, but the deal fell apart. And to Sony's surprise and chagrin, Nintendo partnered with their rival Philips instead, leaving the license of PlayStation to Sony in the split, and just kind of like, no, we don't want to do this anymore. Who knows exactly why? There's lots of theories as to why. You could probably go read up more on that. But the bottom line is Sony and Nintendo were about to create a console together. They split ways, and the next time they each rolled out new systems, they were competitors. And I think that's really fascinating that they were partnered up, had a rough split, and then they were all of a sudden competitors. And you know what's pretty harsh? I don't know if this is true or not. I heard that at a CES show, I want to say 91 maybe, that's where Nintendo announced their new partnership with Philips, and Sony didn't know about it until then. Like, they were starting to roll out this prototype of PlayStation to developers, and they were all excited about their partnership with Nintendo. At least this is what I read. I don't know if this is true. And then Nintendo surprised everyone, including Sony, with, we're excited to partner with Philips with our next, the CD-ROM device. That's pretty cold. That is a pretty cold business move on Nintendo's part. It almost feels like a personal move, really. Like, we're not even going to tell you, but we're just going to partner up with your rival instead. Pretty cold. So that's where Sony and Nintendo split ways, never to be realigned again. Sony's top brass finally decided, you know what, let's get into the gaming market ourselves, because they were resistant to it at first. They create the PlayStation 1, and they dominate the N64. So it's interesting that their move to partner with Philips, which actually also fell apart, they never did create that, that led to the creation of what is their greatest rival and actually the eventual, let's be honest, the new champion in the video gaming space, and that is the Sony PlayStation brand. Kind of ironic, kind of interesting. Many of you already knew that story, but I thought it was really interesting to look at. I was looking at the software sales here, and again, this is from Nintendo's business site themselves. So the old school NES, the original NES, sold worldwide 61.9 million units. The Super Nintendo sold 49.1 million units. So that went down about 12 million. Oh, I got a visitor. Hi. All right. Good night. Good night. Okay. Love you guys. All right. You are a cutie pie. Okay, close the door.
We know the real Tim wants to yell at them, scold them.
Door. If I weren't recording right now, what I would be saying. I'm just kidding. They're too cute to yell at. Yeah. I love when kids are going to bed. I'm like, oh, so lovey-dovey. When they're heading to bed, it's like, I'm not going to see you for 10 hours. All right, so so we had the original NES at just under 62 million, and it went down to 49 million with the Super Nintendo. N64, this is where I think the biggest turn happened.
Yeah.
Down to 32.9 million units. The PS1 blew it out of the water. It wasn't even close. This was a full-on takeover by Sony. And then the next round, the PS2, of course, still the best-selling console of all time. Nintendo GameCube wasn't even close with 21.7 million units sold. I think PlayStation 4 was what, like 150 million? Something crazy. Like it still holds the record today. Okay, so why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this so we have an idea of where Nintendo came from. They were the dominant market shareholder. They were by far the company to beat. They were trounced a lot longer ago than I think we realize because the Wii happened, and the Wii sold over 100 million units. I think it's like the third or fourth best-selling console in history, and that's fantastic. I think the PS4 will pass it, but the Wii is still super successful. But other than the Wii, things kept going down, down, down. And, of course, we've all heard about the Wii U, which I believe is 13 million?
13.5.
Oh, my word. So as close to a complete failure as you can get. Now, this is all outside of their handheld lines. We won't talk about those right now. But I wanted to kind of set the stage for this is where Nintendo came from. They came from being the dominant force in the market. They really introduced us, they at least introduced the mainstream to console gaming as we know it. They've continued to innovate in certain ways, especially in software and in some ways with their hardware, but they have not dominated the market in the same way. And now here we are. 2017, the Nintendo Switch has released, and other than the PlayStation 4, it had the best first month of sales in North America for any console launch, and it just barely was behind the PS4. It beat all the other systems, that's a great sign. I think worldwide, they said in that first month, they're just under 3 million. So in 1 month worldwide, they've already gotten 25% close to that of the Wii U sales. So the Switch is off to a great start. That is setting the stage for this conversation now, and that is this. What's the perception that people have of Nintendo now? And I talked a ton just now, so Derek, I want to hear from you as someone who you enjoy Nintendo products, but maybe they're not your top company. So tell me a little bit, what do you think the perception is now of Nintendo?
Well, I think speaking from a hardcore perspective, I would say you've got Microsoft and Sony, or I should say Xbox and PlayStation, that are always battling for number one now. Nintendo's all seen as third, but it's a different third. It's a non-competitive, nobody even takes them serious third. And I think for a lot of hardcore gamers, if they choose to only go Sony or they only choose to go Xbox, that's usually their second option, is they won't buy another Xbox or a PlayStation. They'll buy a Nintendo console. So for me, the perception of Nintendo for the hardcore fan is that if you don't like their first party, you're not even gonna be considering purchasing their consoles, and they're more of a handheld company. If one of the things we didn't cover, but the stats are there, and I'm not going to go through all the stats, but let's just say this. almost every one of their handhelds is sold over 100 million to 150 million units.
Insane.
So I love when people are like, Nintendo, they're going to go out of business. Their consoles are a fail. And they completely, because this is how ignorant a lot of gamers are, ignore all their units sold.
Well,
for
take us through it real
handhelds.
quick. Tell us what their handhelds have sold in leading up to the Switch. How are their handhelds
you
done?
have the Game Boy at 120 million, Game Boy Advance at 80 million, Nintendo DS at 150 million, and the 3DS, which is a fail, at 66 million. So
Yeah.
they do crazy numbers, and I really think that's why I personally immediately jumped on the bandwagon of the Switch. And again, I want to make sure I'm very clear. Nintendo is a very far third for my personal taste.
Right.
I am more of a PlayStation, Xbox guy, and I kind of switch back and forth depending on who has the better games. Like right now, like last generation, I was a huge Xbox 360 fan. I had the
me too.
PS3. I had it day one. I already shared. Well, not day one. I shared the story about when I could actually.
You
afford
overpaid.
it. Yeah, I overpaid for it, and I bought it as soon as I could afford it.
Worth it.
It was totally worth it. But I always loved the PlayStation games, and last generation it was 360 though, because to me it played the third party the best. I liked the controller the best. I loved Xbox Live, and then going into this generation, I switched to the PS4. So again, too long of a story there, but the point is I'm not a big Nintendo fan.
Right.
And I bought the Wii U on day one because I still like Nintendo stuff, but I will say I got very little joy out of it. There was some releases where I was like, yeah, I really like this game, but I never played the Wii U like I play my PS4 or Xbox One, where it's a consistent, I'm on those. So the reason why I was excited for the Switch is because it was bringing, I would say, it's close. I'm not saying it's exactly there. Xbox One level of power, close to it, combined with handheld. And that was a big deal to me. Even though I'm not a handheld gamer, I like having the option. Like, for instance, I'll give an example. Yesterday, we had a 3v3 tournament, and I was gone all day. I brought my Switch with me. I have Zelda digital. I have Zelda Breath of the Wild. To me, and I've said this, it's probably the greatest game that's ever been created. I have it on the go with me, and I have it on my 55-inch TV.
It's crazy.
Like, that to me is why I love the Switch. Plus, and we've talked about this before, their game plan or their strategy with the Switch has been way, way better than with the U, or even most of their past recent consoles. And that is, they're going, here's Zelda, here's Mario Kart 8, here's ARMS, here's Splatoon 2, and they're just spacing everything out, but they're keeping you, me, and other gamers going, oh, they got another release coming next month. They got another release coming next month. So they're really keeping us engaged and wanting to continue to support this console.
Right.
So I think right now in the current state in the hardcore audience, I think things are looking up. I see a lot of people, and I'm not just talking in our small group. I see it in bigger groups. I see people that used to bash the crap out of the Wii U now saying they like Nintendo and they like the Switch, or if they haven't bought it, they're planning on buying it. So there's a lot of positivity, whereas before there was a lot of negativity. Every time Nintendo's name was brought up, it was doomsday. Every hardcore gamer, except unless you're a Nintendo like hardcore fan, everybody, and I felt like I always had to defend Nintendo, was just like, they suck, they're going under, they're terrible, nobody likes them, they don't offer anything.
Yeah, I can't wait till they make games for the other platforms.
Exactly,
like that
which
was
is
a very
so
common
stupid.
sentiment. Yeah.
So stupid. But yeah, I think they're doing good. They're looking up, but they still got a long way to go.
They do.
I want to say this. One thing I do like about Nintendo is I do like that they're not Microsoft and Sony. I do like that they're not Xbox and PlayStation. They are that third or I should say second option
Right.
for
I was
somebody
gonna say
who's like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, for somebody who's like, I only buy PlayStation products. So why would I buy Microsoft? They only have Gears of War, which I'm kind of interested in, but no, it's not a big deal. Halo's not a big deal to me. I'm cool with PlayStation, right?
Right.
So they're not going to buy an Xbox, but they want more. They have Nintendo, which offers a completely unique experience. You're not going to find that on the Xbox. You're not going to find it on the PlayStation. And trust me, if you pay attention, both Microsoft and Sony have tried to mirror Nintendo when it comes to reaching that family and kid audience. And in some cases, they've been successful. You got your Ratchet and Clanks, and you've got, some other games out that has hit Little Big Planet's another one that's hit real well, but they've never, ever hit like Nintendo does consistently.
I think that's totally true because when the Wii came out, shortly after that, you had the PlayStation Move. I think it wasn't too long after that you had things like the Kinect. Maybe the Kinect came first, but these devices would not have existed if it weren't for Nintendo's innovation. And that includes even things within games. I think we're going to start seeing maybe not first-party studios of Sony and Microsoft, but certainly games on their systems will be mimicking things that we saw in Zelda, and I believe things that we're about to see in Mario Odyssey, which looks to be one of the more creative games outside of Zelda in a long time. I think people mimic a lot of stuff that Nintendo does. They're still it's funny that they're not really in the same race. It's almost like you're at a track and field event, and Sony and Microsoft are running the some kind of relay or some kind of the long jump, but Nintendo's over here doing the pole vault. Like they're doing different. They're in the same arena. They're both fighting for your attention, but they're not really directly competing. And I think that's how I think about it. And they're competing for your attention and your time and your money. Absolutely. But they're not directly competing in terms of graphical power, in terms of capability. Let me ask you this. Nintendo's always been slow to adapt to what the popular culture is doing. And these are some of the kinds of things that this is a paraphrase of some things that they typically would be known to say, or at least their strategy seems to be saying. People don't want their game consoles to play DVDs. Or in other words, they don't need their game consoles to do anything other than play games. Right? This is why a lot of Nintendo consoles were very limited in terms of additional apps for music or movies. Now, they fixed some of that with the 3DS line, and with Wii and Wii U, they did some stuff, but still very limited. Like, here's your Netflix, and here's a few other things. Nowhere near what Sony or Microsoft were trying to offer, as they wanted the all-in-one entertainment unit. They also used to say things like, people don't want to play online. I don't know if you remember that, but when the internet, playing online became a really big thing, especially in the early 2000s as PS2 and the original Xbox started having their live services. And then PS3 and the 360 really started picking up steam. I think on GameCube, maybe you could play Phantasy Star online. And then they were like, oh, you can connect your Game Boy Advance to your GameCube if you want. Like, they were doing these weird things that weren't quite right. And again, the old brass at Nintendo was like, people don't want to play online. And they were just kind of behind the times. And of course, another thing is basically people don't really need third-party games on their system. They just need our games. That's all people really want, is they just want Nintendo games and Nintendo consoles. Now, these are kind of paraphrases of what their strategy seems to be saying.
But I will say this real quick, just because I don't want to lose that point. Yeah. They were right back then, though. Back then, Nintendo, and I said this before, there are still people that I know that will be like, oh, what Nintendo is that? Like, every console is a Nintendo. That was who Nintendo was, and that was true. Exactly. They were going to sell their console just because you wanted to play their games.
Exactly.
The problem is Sony, Microsoft have matured. Guess what? Me, who used to play Super Mario and all that stuff, I've matured too. And I would rather play Doom and Doom and Mass Effect and all that stuff than I would, I'll be honest, Mario. I don't get as excited about that. That being said, I have to say this real quick. I didn't pay attention when they went into their whole Mario Odyssey thing at E3. I was like, I already know what that is, and I didn't watch it. Well, I had no excitement for the game, and you guys kept talking about it. You're like, Mario Odyssey looks like it could be Game of the Year, this great game, and I'm like, all right, let's go check out a little bit. And I watched a little bit of gameplay, and I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. This is freaking cool. Like, it really is cool. I'm not just saying that. I was like, wow, this is really cool. But anyways,
I don't think it's going to be like Zelda, but I do think they're taking some some things out of that playbook where it's like
Yeah,
you
it's
can
open.
kind of openly
Yeah.
explore in a way that you haven't been able to in Mario for a long time. And
Yeah.
it looks really, really creative. So I think there's going to be some comparisons to what they did with Breath of the Wild to change the Zelda formula. I think they're taking some similar tactics to changing the Mario formula with
Which
Mario Odyssey.
immediately
Yeah.
hyped me. So yes, that game will be paid off ASAP. Let's just say that. But anyways, the point I was trying to make is Nintendo used to be Nintendo.
Correct.
If you were talking about a console and you were not a hardcore gamer, you would just say, "What Nintendo are you playing?" That is now the PlayStation. PlayStation
Correct.
has dominated that. Xbox isn't far behind. People still say that. Nintendo has been, in a way, forgotten. Yes, they have their hardcore fan base. That's what keeps them afloat. And their handhelds, they sell to mommies and daddies who don't game, who are like, I need to get something to get my kid to shut up while they're in the van.
Yeah.
Give me the Nintendo.
Yeah,
okay?
look, it's got all the cute little doggy and pony games. Let's just get that for them.
Exactly. So they know where they're selling to. The Switch, to me, is the first console, and I'm really, I gotta say, I'll be a Nintendo bot. Call me whatever you want. I really want this thing to sell 100 million. I want them to blow up, and I want them to blow up and get better. Not blow up to get arrogant, but blow up to, like, now start moving forward, and maybe their next console will be even greater, and they'll invest even more into their home consoles, or whatever they're going to do going forward, because it's really both. But I really root for Nintendo, but they do have a lot of work to do. I do think they are on the right track. I see, like, for instance, this past E3, I'll use Jesse White as an example. I haven't seen Jesse White say anything positive on Nintendo. He's not a hater, but he never says anything positive. He's never been like, yeah, I'm going to go buy that 3DS, or yeah, I'm definitely buying the Switch. He's always asked a lot of questions and been like, no, they're failing here, they're failing there. Well, after this E3, he immediately was like, I'm definitely getting a Switch.
Yeah,
and
he
why?
was like, it's a matter of
Because
time. At some point, I'll get one.
Yeah.
He didn't know when, but he's going to get one. Right.
And the reason is because Nintendo finally listened. And I don't know if they're a small group that's just really loud, but I think they're a pretty big group. But they finally listened, and people have been begging for Metroid games. And now you have two. You have one coming out on the 3DS very soon.
Which I'm going to buy.
Yeah, well, not me. And then you have one coming out on the Switch, which I will buy because it's more my style. It's a first-person shooter type game, which is Metroid Prime. So they're listening. They're doing things. They're adjusting their internet. It looks like their internet service
that's a
is
great
gonna be
point, because I
cheaper.
want to jump on top of that, too.
ahead.
They're listening, because when they announced their Game of the Month, kind of their classic Game of the Month program, and they said, you'll have access to this game for 1 month. When that time is up, you'll have to buy it to keep playing it. And that was kind of to say, this is how we'll launch our virtual console. And I think they've moved this back to January now. So this is going to be a while till we get to see some of this stuff in action. But that being said, they listened. There was a pretty big outcry about that, about how could you do that? Like, that's ridiculous. What a silly system. No one's going to like it. And they have just kind of quietly changed that in terms of this is how it's going to work. And they've said, no, actually, when you download that free game, as long as you continue to subscribe to us like you would PS Plus or Xbox Live, you'll have access to all those free games that we've given out each month. And so you'll have one new classic game, maybe two every month, in addition to games you could buy on Virtual Console. Whenever that launches, they're listening. And I just wanted to add that onto your point. I totally agree with you. They're listening to what people want. And I feel like that is what's changing about Nintendo. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Think about those things. You know, people don't want their game consoles to play DVDs or watch movies. They don't really want to play online. They don't really need third-party games. Those are kind of the old-school Nintendo mindsets. How would you say they've adjusted that mindset and their messaging to us, the gamers? Or in what ways are they still kind of stuck behind a little bit? Do you think they've adjusted that, or do you think they're holding to some of those things?
I think they are in the middle right now. I think, obviously, they understand that DVDs do matter, even though they went away from it, but for good reason. I think if they weren't doing a hybrid console, they would have gone to disc. But they do realize the online play is important. I know a critic would say, well, then if it's important, why aren't you able to chat and play online? And why don't you have the service up? I really do believe the Switch was kind of a rush job. Meaning, I think they had the console built, but I don't think they had everything else you need with a console launch, and
all
that
the
would be
services weren't ready.
your online services. I don't
Right.
think they had their store really set up for digital sales to really you know.
I mean, there are 0 apps available on this thing.
Yeah,
Like,
that was what I was
there's
gonna
no
get to
apps.
next. There's no Netflix, which I'll tell you right now, I own 2 Switches, but they're my Switches. Now, one of them is kind of my daughter's. I gave it to her, but I still control it because I don't trust my kids. Meaning, they're not allowed to take it anywhere. Like, I
Right.
don't let them
Right.
take
Yeah.
the Switch. Like, if they're going with mommy somewhere, they don't take the Switch. So, about 8 days ago, so last week, was Eli's birthday, and then a month from now is going to be Ian's birthday. So I asked both of them. I said, what do you want for your birthday? And it was between a Switch and a tablet. Now, I know why they would want one or the other. They were leaning more towards the tablet, but I told them, I said, this is kind of how I was selling it to them. I said, listen, with the Switch, you get FIFA 18, and it's going to look pretty close to what you see on your Xbox One.
Especially on the handheld mode, it's going to
Yeah.
look great. Yeah.
You're gonna be able to take this anywhere. And I said, if it's your Switch, it's your Switch. So if you lose it, just like you lose your tablet, that's on you. I'm not replacing it, and I'm also not going to tell you no if you want to take it anywhere. So I said, you've got FIFA 18, you've got ARMS, you've got Mario Odyssey, which they really wanted. I was like, you've got Rocket League.
Yeah.
They wanted all that. They even switched. I used to use the word, but they did. They switched to the Switch. They're like, Dad, I want the Switch. And then they thought about it, and they're like, but Dad, does the Switch have Netflix? And does it have like apps where I can watch like YouTube and stuff like that? I was like, that's coming later.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
And I can't talk to my friends on it. I was like, no. More than likely, your friends aren't going to have a Switch.
Yeah, you can't even message them, right?
Yeah.
Unless so
can't
there's
do
no
anything.
messaging. You can be their friends and play games with them. Like in Mario Kart, there's a selection of automated messages you can send. But yeah, it's incredibly limited in those ways. Yeah.
So in the end, Eli went with the tablet, and Ian even switched his vote to, he was like, yeah, I'd rather have a tablet.
Yeah.
So I really try to sell them on the Switch. I'm okay if they want the tablet, but I told Eli, I was like, dude, you're playing this, it's called Dream League, this Dream League soccer game that looks like total trash, or you could play FIFA 18. I'll buy you your own copy. It's your copy. You can do whatever you want. And he still picked it because they are limited on the things that matter to kids as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully they'll pick up on that. They need to get a little bit better on that, because if they would have had that stuff, if I could have showed them YouTube and all that, I guarantee they would have been like, you know what? I can use, like, Ian's got his phone. He's like, I could use my phone to talk to my friends. I'm going to buy the Switch so I have the games, YouTube, and music,
Netflix,
and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. It's weird that there's 0 apps. Again, I think you're spot on, and I don't agree with you all the time, but I think in this case you're totally right. I think they had to get the Switch out by a certain date, and I think the unit itself was ready to go. I mean, it plays smoothly, everything works great, the controllers are wonderful, but all the services and apps, they just weren't quite there yet, and I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know if resources are still in the process of being shifted over from 3DS and maybe even some mobile stuff that it seems like Nintendo's been shifting more into mobile, but now with the Switch success, maybe are they going to bring them back a little bit to really bolster the offerings there? I don't know.
I want to say this real quick. I'm not saying that I have the answer and that I'm right. All I'm saying is just from a business standpoint, the way I looked at it, I was having this conversation with some people in our group, and they were talking about how the Nintendo Switch is still very hard to get a hold of, and it is. Like, you cannot walk into a store and just go pick up a Switch.
Yeah, I haven't seen them on the shelves yet. Still,
right now you have to be alerted. Like, I saw a sign on one of my GameStops that I went into saying, come in and we'll sell you a bundle online, meaning they don't even have it in the store, and they're forcing you to buy a bundle, which means they're forcing you to buy a game or two with it and all that stuff. So they're very, very limited. And that was the conversation of, like, how could this be? And I said, well, let's take a look here. And you've got to remember, Nintendo doesn't run based off of how you guys feel. They run a business. Right. They just failed miserably with the Wii U. Miserably with the Wii U.
You just heard the numbers, 13.5 million. That's bad.
I'm sure they made their money back in it in some way, but they didn't make a lot of profit if they made any at all.
No.
And so going into the Switch, while they knew they were going to create another console, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, look, we're going to create this console, we're going to invest in the console, we're going to invest in the games, but we're not going to invest in anything else, and we're not going to overdevelop these. Nintendo has to be when they're in their little board meetings, they can't sit there and be like, all we have to do is release the Switch, dude. We're going to sell 20 million. They can't. They're going to be like, I have no idea how we're going to
Right.
do it. We may
they
only
did
sell
that
100,000.
apparently. Some behind the scenes news came out that there were those kinds of conversations about the Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
Like they saw the success of the Wii and they said this is the next version of the Wii. It's more powerful. It's got this off-screen mode.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to do bananas sales. It's going to do crazy. I expect 100 million units sold easily. And pushing 120. Like those are internal numbers that were being thrown around in serious conversation. So I hope that they aren't feeling that kind of cockiness. I hope they're feeling that pressure, and they have to be. Because, 66 million 3DSs is an impressive number. But that is less than half of their previous handheld.
Yeah.
So if they're just looking at the bar chart or the line graph, whatever it is, everything's on the decline. After the Wii, you almost have a complete drop off the cliff for the Wii U. After the DS, which is the second best-selling console ever of any kind, handheld or regular console, then you have, even though it's still a decent number, you still have a very big decline. It's like a 50% drop. So these are numbers that I know they have to be looking at, and so I really hope that, just like you said, there's not that kind of cockiness, that kind of, now we've sold 3 million in our first month, we're doing great, and I hope they don't sit back and rest. This E3, like we talked about last week, I don't think they are. I think they're pushing things forward. I think they're thinking, what do the fans want? What gets people excited? What would bring back the gamers who have totally shifted away from us? Like you said, they've grown up, they've moved on to Call of Duties and Mass Effects and everything else. What would bring them back? Is it revitalizing old franchises? Is it thinking outside the box with things like ARMS and Splatoon? And I think it's a combination of those things. I think the perception of Nintendo now is there's a couple things. I think the negative is they still can't get enough third parties, and so that's kind of still a bummer. But I think the other perception is their creativity is paying off, their innovation is paying off, and they're grabbing people's interest again in a way that they couldn't with the Wii U. And they're actually getting gamers' attention. That's the thing. With the Wii, you had grandmas and grandpas' attention. You had moms and dads' attention. And everyone wanted it for Wii Bowling and Wii Sports and for Netflix. It became the Netflix machine. But you weren't getting the attention of tons and tons of gamers necessarily. I mean, there were a lot of gamers like myself, and I think
I liked it at first, but I didn't touch my Wii.
But it quickly
after.
fell off. I think the Switch is finally recapturing the attention of gamers, kind of like the GameCube did. Even though the GameCube didn't sell super well, the GameCube still had the attention of gamers because they still had stuff like Eternal Darkness and Mario Sunshine and Wind Waker, and they had a whole bunch of Resident Evil 4 was exclusive there for a little while, I think. So they had the attention of gamers, and I think the Switch is recapturing that. But like you said, and I think you're really, really correct on this, they have a long way to go. It is a great first step. It's been a nice, kind of pleasant surprise year for Nintendo so far, and it looks like 2017 is going to close out with a series of more amazing Nintendo games. But now they have to kind of address
I think they have
these
a
other
good
issues.
Strategy right
They
now.
do. It does.
And
it
that
seems like
is...
it.
The bottom line is, while we are talking about Netflix and all that stuff, and I did say that did kind of push away my kids a little bit. I'm not saying that was the definitive reason, but it didn't help not having it. I do think they were smart to come out and say, that's not our focus. Our focus is, first of all, we're releasing Zelda, then we're releasing this game after that, and this game after that, and this game. So they have gotten to, and Microsoft and Sony are doing this as well. They're listening to the people. On their E3 shows, it's no longer... Let's take 30 minutes to show you this one game that nobody cares about or anything like that. Or let's take 20 minutes to show you a magic book or a hologram or whatever boring crap nobody cares about. It's games, games, games. And that's what Nintendo's doing now. They're like, okay, with the Switch, it's games, games, games.
Yep.
So yes, they don't have third-party support right now. But I said this from day one that... in order for the Switch to be successful, I'm talking 100 million, like really big, they need outside support. They cannot just do first party, right? Okay, so here's the problem. you're not getting third-party support until you sell. So you have to sell to get third-party support. In order to sell really well, you need third-party support. So what Nintendo had to do, and I think so far they've nailed it, and again, we've got a long ways to go. Let's see if the sales keep going. Let's see if they get anything in stock. But if the sales keep going up, they will get the Ubisofts and all of them. I know Ubisoft right now is combining with them, which is a little bit safer venture for them instead of
kind
going,
of tipping their toes. They're dipping their toes in the water a little bit.
It's a lot safer than, hey, let's create a Zombie U, which was a complete fail. Let's do a game with Nintendo, which means I'm sure Nintendo's paying them, and they're maybe paying a little bit or whatever, investing a little bit. But overall, I'm sure Nintendo's investing a little bit more than Ubisoft is in some way. But let's get these type of games on. Let's get the Zelda of the Breath of the Wild. I'll tell you right now, there's 2 reasons why I think the Switch is selling crazy. And this was also the key for the Wii. And this is why I'm not saying it's going to sell like the Wii, but it's doing 2 things similar to the Wii. The Wii launched with the Zelda, a new experience. Well, I know it was on the GameCube, but still. The definitive version.
It's on the last console, but people want it on the new one.
Yeah. Yep. So it's launched with the Zelda, and in this situation, it launched with, in my opinion, the greatest Zelda. And then the second thing it did is it has some type of gimmick to it that people actually want. Like when the Wii came out,
the docking system, right?
The Wii came out, bowling and all that stuff, that was all new. And so when I, even as a hardcore gamer, saw it, I was like, I want that. Now, it wore off for me, personally. I played it for a little bit. I'd play it with my friends, and then I was done with it. And like I said earlier, I just didn't touch my Wii. Yes, that is a Wii joke. So I didn't touch my Wii after that.
Don't touch your Wii.
Stop touching your Wii. And I just grew out of it. I was like, I don't care about any of the games. I didn't even really play Mario Galaxy, really. I owned it, but I just never really cared about it. But I grew out of that. But with the Switch, you've got the same thing. You've got Zelda Breath of the Wild, and the gimmick that they have, it's not really a gimmick, but their little thing that they have, is that it's a console, home console, and a handheld. And the handheld is where they've had the most success ever. So this is genius. They're selling to those people that bought their handhelds. Yes, it is pricier, but remember, the 3DS launched at $300, so people will pay for it. Now, it did drop because it didn't sell real well, but this also is advertising home console, handheld, and it is graphically almost, not all the way, almost as powerful as like an Xbox One. So there's a lot going for the Switch. If they can continue with the first-party success, I do think you will see more third-party. I really do. No, you're not going to get The Witcher 4. You're not going to get maybe even an Assassin's Creed game. What you will get is those third-party games making specific games for the Switch, which what that will give you is even more exclusives to the Switch. And another thing to look at is, as somebody who likes FIFA a lot, I enjoy playing it, and my kids play the crap out of that stuff. Reading articles all over the internet saying it is the definitive best version of a handheld soccer game ever makes me happy. Do I want to pay $60 for it? I really hope it's not $60. I know Nintendo's dumb and they'll price it at $60, but they really should price it at $40 or $50 because it is missing modes and stuff.
It'll be $48 if you've got Best Buy. So.
I know, but it still should be cheaper. They should say, hey, you're not getting the full version like you would on the Xbox. We'll chop off $10 because they did.
Well, and here's what I think they have to do to get third parties back in the Nintendo camp again. To get the Ubisofts, maybe even, they've teamed up with Rockstar before. Don't laugh. You never know what Rockstar would do on this thing. There's other big name companies that they could team up with again that could bring. They've got Skyrim coming. They've got Rocket League coming, and they just this past spring released Minecraft. These are 3 of the biggest third-party games in recent memory, and they're all coming to the Switch in year 1. Yes, they're re-releases. Yes, they've been out for a long time on other consoles, but bear with me. If Minecraft, which is far and away the best-selling game in history and continues to sell, if Minecraft is on your system, if Rocket League, one of the most popular online games currently, and has sold gangbusters on every system basically, and then Skyrim, one of the best and most loved open-world RPGs, again, it's been on every system and re-released many times. If these 3 games have any kind of success, this is a great way for Nintendo to prove the value to third parties that, look, you can even release an old game on this system, and people just want it because of the system that we've built. For everything you just described, the ability to dock it, play it on the go, it comes with 2 controllers built in if you're playing multiplayer. It's got all the stuff that a gamer wants just for the ease of play and ease of sharing. And they're going to continue to add to it. And check this out. Minecraft is now selling this many hundreds of thousands, and Skyrim jumped out of the gate with this many sold, and Rocket League's getting this many downloads. These are not major third-party gets in 2017, but I think it's the best strategy that Nintendo has at this point to get third parties back on board. I don't think the best plan is for them to have a family version of Madden again. That was awful. That was a fail. When they had that kind of like Madden Play or whatever they called it, it was bad. And I hope that FIFA and other sports franchises are not always a, hey, it's everything except for the main story mode type of version.
I really don't. I think this is a test.
I think it's a test too.
I think it's also the articles I read, FIFA is being built from scratch, FIFA 18 for the Switch. Right. So they didn't have as much time as they did on the Xbox One and PS4. So they obviously had to eliminate things. So they eliminated the stuff they felt like could be eliminated. And so I understand.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a good step forward for Nintendo. This is also a great opportunity for, I mean, companies love their compilation re-releases. You know, let's get a Ubisoft to release a Splinter Cell compilation. All those games would run great on the Switch. It could totally handle all the Splinter Cell games. Give us the Splinter Cell compilation and see how that does. Like that's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
On the go. You know, a BioShock collection. Put that out on the go. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying I only want old games on the Switch. I'm saying from a strategic point of view, if they can show third parties, look, this is what people want. Even though it's an old game and they've bought it 3 or 4 times on other systems, they want it on our system because our system gives gamers the convenience of on the screen and handheld, both mixed together. I think that's going to be one of their best ways to get third parties back on board. Let's close out with 2 thoughts each. Let's talk about what you think would be the number one best thing Nintendo could do next, whether it's with the Switch or whatever, and the worst thing that they could do with this momentum. So think about that for a second. We're going to close out in just a minute. Just a reminder to everybody, go check out our Facebook page and Facebook group to vote for the Mid-Year Game of the Year Awards. Also, share the show, rate it, review it, all that fun stuff. Make sure you're sharing it with your friends that also like video games. So Derek, what do you think Nintendo could do that would be, let's start with negative. What's the worst thing that you think they could do at this point, maybe sometime this year? What's the worst thing that Nintendo could try to do right now?
I think the worst thing they could do is some of the stuff they still do, and that is terrible messaging with some of their decision making is terrible. Like we talked about earlier, you know, how they were originally, their online plan was to give you a game and then you have to give it back, and then not even just that, then the online service, which it's still up in the air right now with the voice chat on your phone, the diagrams of how you're supposed to connect it. It's like those type of things. It's like, that's archaic Nintendo. Like, come on, let's use a little bit of common sense here. Let's try to, you know, make it a little bit easier for the customers instead of always siding with yourself. I think that's one of the things that they don't do a great job of completely listening. I do see them getting better, but I still see them very archaic in some of their decisions where the literal natural reaction is Nintendo being Nintendo. That's not a good thing when people say Nintendo's just being Nintendo. That means Nintendo's being a dumbass. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Replace Nintendo with dumbass. So hopefully they'll get better at that and stay away from that. And then I'll share what they should do after you share yours.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's a number of things, of course, they could do to kind of stumble back into the old, honestly, the end of the Wii life, right into the Wii U days. There's a lot of things they could do to kind of stumble out of the gate. But gosh, I think the worst thing that they could do is, I think if they continue to throw a ton of resources and support behind the 3DS beyond March 2018, that's the 1-year mark of the Switch, I think that's one of the worst things they could do. I think Nintendo needs to throw 100% of their internal resources, their creativity, their development, their marketing. It needs to go 100% behind the Switch. And the 3DS has been a great system. I've enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing the Metroid remake of Metroid 2 this September. It looks fantastic. That being said, that system is ready to be shelved. I think the worst thing Nintendo could do is to allow their very valuable, and I think it seems very limited resources to continue to support another system that is now, 6 years old. You need to move on from that one. And it's time to just totally support the new console, the new Nintendo Switch. That's what I think. The worst thing they could do is to continue to support the 3DS after the Switch turns 1. You have to turn it off at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, mine kind of goes along with yours, but mine's on the positive, and that was I was going to actually say that you have to stop supporting the 3DS, and you have to fully support the Switch with games. So what I want to see is you continue to do what you're doing right now. It's making me, as somebody who bought the U from day one but doesn't have a positive opinion about it, compared to me who bought the Switch day one, and so far, and again, we're only 3 months in, I love this system. It's one of my favorite systems ever. Just, I'm talking about the feel of it, the way I can play it anywhere, that type of stuff. The thing that will keep me loving this system is if they continue to release their content, their games, consistently. And what I would like to see, 2 things I'd like to see from Nintendo. I'd like them to bring back old first-party games that they haven't supported in a long time. So Metro Prime 4 is a start. I'd like to see a Star Fox Adventure 2. I'd like to see now I'm forgetting it. F-Zero. I'd like to see those type of games. Donkey Kong. I'd like to see another Donkey Kong Country. I'd like to see those, but I'd also like to see more third-party support, and I think we'll get that if they stick to what I just said previously, the game plan of consistently releasing games and making an announcement in the next 6 months that we will get a virtual console with GameCube games and so on. I think that will help.
Yeah, no, I think there's 2 things that could be the best. It's like a combo of things because they both involve old Nintendo games. And if they do these things in tandem, I think it's the best thing Nintendo could do to keep this momentum going. And I think they have until January or February to deliver on this because I think their momentum of what they currently have planned out for this year is going to carry them past Christmas. My personal opinion, what they currently have with the games they have planned between now and Christmas, they've got a great strategy, like you said, in place.
If nothing gets delayed, they're loaded. Yes. I'm overly
If nothing's delayed, I think this could be one of the best first years in terms of just software for a console that I've ever seen. Could be. And that's assuming nothing gets delayed. But I think by the time January and February roll around, the best 2 things they could do, number 1, is like you said, yes, deliver on the virtual console. But don't just say, we have a virtual console and we'll start rolling out games every week. They need to launch that thing with a huge selection of games from all their old systems. At the very least, a dozen or more from each console that have already been released elsewhere, somehow that you can connect to your accounts like they did with the Wii U. Something where you've got a huge selection of virtual console games out of the gate, ready to go. I think on the flip side of that, kind of back to negative a little bit, if they launch this virtual console with a handful of games and every 2 or 3 weeks they roll out 2 or 3 new games, that's a horrible choice. That was one of the biggest mistakes I think they made with the Wii. They lost momentum with the Wii, with the virtual console, because they did that. So I think they need to launch the virtual console with a huge library, as big as they can possibly launch with. And number 2, I think they need to have a best of Wii U series, and I think they need to re-release Wii U games with a, and call it whatever you want to call it, the Wii U series on the Switch, and here's Toad's Treasure Tracker, and here's Bayonetta 2, and here's Mario Maker, and here's all your heavy hitters.
Yeah, you don't even have to remaster them. You just have to get them out digital, and you're good.
Correct. Yeah, and so I think Virtual Console should go all the way up to the GameCube, and then I think they should re-release a selection of Wii U, possibly even Wii, but definitely Wii U games on this system. And then I think they will have done a better job than anyone could have expected Nintendo to do at this point. So all that being said, I think Nintendo has a great perception right now. You described it perfectly. I think they have great momentum right now. As a longtime Nintendo fan, and I've been through the good days and the bad days, I have a bad feeling that, they might drop the ball here and there. That's possible. It's likely. Every company makes mistakes now and again. But as long as they continue this first, and that's what I think Nintendo is doing right to some extent. I think Nintendo is thinking customer first. This is what they want. They want a system that's a console at home and on the go. They want these classic games. Here's your 2 new Metroid games you've been asking for. I think they're showing signs of being more customer-centric and less here's what the boss at Nintendo said because of a graph-centric. So I'm feeling very optimistic about that, and it'll be interesting to see over the next few weeks, not next week, but over the next coming weeks, we'll do the same thing with Sony and Microsoft. We're going to talk about their perceptions as well, and it'll be interesting to see how they match up with Nintendo. But that does it for our State of Nintendo discussion in 2017. It'll be interesting to revisit this later this year or perhaps into next year and get an idea of where Nintendo is now. But for right now, that's what we think. But what do you guys think, the listeners? How do you perceive Nintendo now? What do you think has been their biggest wins, and what have they been doing right? Why do they have momentum right now? And what's the best thing they could do next? So I want to hear from you. Make sure you hit us up on the Facebook group, or I haven't said this in a while, but you can email us. We've gotten a few emails to fathersofthegrind@gmail.com. Throw those our way. And that's it. Derek, anything else? Any final parting words of wisdom you want to share with everybody as we sign off?
I tried to tell you that your mic was getting all fuzzy, but so that last 3 minutes you just talked was distorted fuzziness. So have fun editing that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, that's it. We're gonna sign off. I might have to re-record some of this if my mic sounds bad. We'll see.
Yeah, the ending. That's all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Who is your daddy?
I am the father.
You fathers will understand.
My father taught me many things.
I got an idea. How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?